Alright, so chapter 13 is about the process of meiosis and genetic variation. Alright, so you want to review these concepts that I talked about in my mitosis lecture. Alright, so you'll want to review the differences between somatic and gametic cells. Alright, what those are, what examples of somatic and gametic cells are, and how they're different. Alright, where they'd be found in the body. You'll also want to review autosomes, sex chromosomes, karyotypes, the complement of the number of chromosomes in a typical human cell that's either somatic or gametic. Alright, you'll want to refamiliarize yourself with the complement of sex chromosomes and whether or not an individual is male or female. You'll also want to review the terms haploid and diploid. And what those terms actually mean. Alright, so when you're looking at the full complement of chromosomes in an organism, alright, different organisms have different total number of chromosomes in their somatic and gametic cells. Alright, so here you're looking at the total chromosome set of a fruit fly. Alright, so you have one set, a second set, a third set, and a fourth set. Alright, so in this case you have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 chromosomes total in a fruit fly. Alright, that means that you have 6 autosomes and 2 sex chromosomes. Alright, so here on the right you're actually looking at the full karyotype. Alright, the fruit fly. Alright, so homologous chromosomes. Alright, when I talk about homologous chromosomes, what I'm referring to is the fact that, alright, for this complement of chromosomes, alright, so you have 2 sets or 2 pairs. You have a pair of chromosomes 2, pair of chromosomes 3, 4, and sex chromosomes. Alright, so this chromosome is homologous to this one. Alright, this chromosome is homologous to that one. This one's homologous to that one. This one is homologous to the Y chromosome. Alright, so homologous chromosomes. Alright, they are the same length. Alright, they have the same centromere position. Alright, so centromere position can be central, it can be a little off center, or it could be towards the distal end of the chromosome. Alright. You can have the locations of the genes, alright, in the chromosomes. Alright, so in this case, when you stain the chromosomes, you're going to have the same pattern between homologous chromosomes for locations of genes. Alright, so the genes that are found in homologous chromosomes, they control the same character. Alright, so basically the same trait. Alright, so differentiating between characters and traits. Alright, so a character would be something like eye color. Alright, that would be a character or characteristic. Alright, you could have different traits. Alright, so you can have You can have blue eyes, you can have brown eyes, you can have green eyes, you have red eyes. Alright, so each of these is an individual trait. Alright, and each individual trait is going to be encoded by a particular allele. Alright, so a gene for eye color. Alright, so we can have gene A for blue eyes. You can have another version of that gene, B, C, D. Alright. And depending on the combination of these genes, of these alleles, alright, for a particular characteristic, you have a trait. You'll have blue eyes, brown eyes, green eyes, red eyes. Alright, so homologous chromosomes encode for the same characteristics. Alright, but homologous chromosomes don't necessarily encode for the same traits. Alright, that means you can have different alleles between homologous chromosomes. Alright, so here you're looking at a complement of total chromosomes in a fictitious cell. Alright, so this particular cell is diploid. Alright, so that means that it has 2 sets of chromosomes. Alright, so it's a total of 6. Alright, so it's got 2 sets of the large chromosome, we'll call A. It's got 2 sets of the medium-sized chromosome, we'll call B, and 2 sets of the little one chromosomes, we'll call C. Alright. So half of the complement comes from the mom, half the complement comes from the father. Alright, so that's what I'm implying by homologous chromosomes, is that one set of chromosomes from the dad and one set of chromosomes from the mom are going to eventually pair up. Right? Each chromosome pairs up with its homologous chromosome from the other parent. Alright, so here you're looking at an example of 2 chromosomes. Alright, they're homologous. Alright, so one pair, right, you have genes for eye color. Alright, notice that the genes for eye color, on the maternal chromosome you have brown eyes, and on the paternal chromosome you have green eyes. Alright, looking at this other chromosome, you have a gene for hair color. Alright, so we have black and we have red. Alright, we'll make that capital R, make that little r. Alright, so right now you have the pairing of your chromosomes. Alright, now what's going to happen during interphase is that each of these chromosomes is going to replicate, just like it did prior to cells entering mitosis. Okay. Interphase is interphase. Okay. All these steps that are involved in interphase we talked about previously happen here. Okay, so here you'll notice that you have your individual chromosomes that are duplicated. Alright, and your duplicated chromosomes have paired up, so you have your homologous pairs grouping together. And that, you'll notice, alright, this kind of ties into this idea of genetic variation, that the way your homologous chromosomes line up is random. Alright, so meaning that this big chromosome here, we'll label 1, All right. Could be on the left side or it could be on the right side of the cell. All right, here it's on the left side. All right, down here, the little chromosome, labeled 2, could be on the left side, or in this other diagram, is on the right side. All right, so it's completely random as to how your homologous chromosomes orient themselves along this little imaginary line during meiosis. All right, so this leads to genetic variation all on its own. All right, you'll notice that at the end of this process of meiosis I, all right, each individual, right, at the end of meiosis completely, each individual cell, daughter cell, has half the total complement of chromosomes. So here, you notice you have 1, 2, 3, 4 chromosomes. Here you have 2. All right, so you're basically reducing it by 1/2 through meiosis. All right, so here we get a cell, a gametic cell, and it encodes for brown eyes, black hair. One encodes for green eyes, red hair. One encodes for brown eyes, red hair. One encodes for green eyes, black hair. All right, so you end up with gametes with different combinations of chromosomes, which encode for different traits. So you end up with variation. All right, so here we have our maternal chromosomes and maternal chromosome. They replicate. All right, so all this takes place during interphase. All right, specifically this replication stage occurs during the S phase. Okay, and then your homologous chromosomes pair up during prophase 1. All right, so your homologous chromosomes are paired up. All right, so during meiosis I, they pair up. And then at the end of meiosis I, you end up with 2 daughter cells. All right, so here, notice that if you look at the centromere, all right, you got 1, 2 centromeres. All right, so you get 2 total chromosomes. Here, at the end of meiosis I, you have 1, 1. So you got 1 chromosome, 1 chromosome. All right, so again, at the end of meiosis I, you've cut the number of chromosomes by half. Now, at the end of meiosis II, you'll see that your sister chromatids now separate. So each individual daughter cell has 1 chromosome. All right, so now you have your egg cell, you have your sperm cell, each with 1 chromosome each. They fuse together, you get your zygote that now has 2 chromosomes, which is the original complement that you originally had, total, in your diploid cell. All right, so that's been restored. All right, so the process of meiosis is involved in producing gametic cells that are haploid, all right, from diploid organisms. All right, so basically, in order to restore the correct complement of chromosomes. You have to reduce the total number of chromosomes in half, so that when your egg cell and your sperm cell come together and chromosomes are recombined in that embryo, that zygote, that it has a full correct complement of chromosomes. Alright, so the idea here is that you have, for instance, 46. Alright, so talking about meiosis, you end up with a little sperm cell with 23. You end up with a little egg cell with 23. And these combine into your little zygote to restore 46 total chromosomes. Alright, so you have to use meiosis to cut the number of chromosomes by half. So when these were recombined, you get the correct number of chromosomes. Alright, we'll talk about what happens when this process doesn't happen or doesn't occur like it should. Alright, you have some abnormal numbers of chromosomes and how that arises. Alright, so looking here, alright, before meiosis even begins, alright, your cells are in interphase. Alright, so they're going through the normal checkpoints of interphase as they normally would. And during this S phase, your chromosomes duplicate. So you end up with sister chromatids. Alright, so during prophase 1 of meiosis, alright, your homologous chromosomes pair up. Alright, and at the end of this process of meiosis 1, your homologous pairs separate. Alright, so this is a form of reductional division. Alright, so you cut the number of total chromosomes in a cell by half. Alright, so here we have 2, here we have 1 each. Alright, and then meiosis 2. Meiosis 2 is very similar to mitosis. Alright, so if you're already comfortable with mitosis, meiosis 2 will be a breeze. Alright, because the same events that happen in mitosis happen in meiosis 2. Alright, so this is a form of equatorial or equational division, equal division. Alright, so now your sister chromatids separate from one another. Or each daughter cell now has a single individual chromosome. In this example. Okay. Alright, so organisms that reproduce through sexual reproduction. Alright, you see this alternation between meiosis and fertilization. Now, we're going to go over a couple of different life cycles that you see that vary in the timing for which meiosis occurs and fertilization. Alright, so when you're talking about animal cells, alright, your gametes are the only haploid cells. Alright. They're produced by meiosis, and prior to fertilization, alright, they don't undergo any more forms of cellular division. Alright, so when your gametes fuse back together, you get your full complement of total chromosomes. Alright, so plants and algae, alright, they have an alternation of generations. Alright, so in this case, you're looking at a life cycle that includes both diploid and haploid multicellular stages. Alright, so the diploid organism is the sporophyte. Alright, the sporophyte is responsible for making haploid spores by meiosis. Alright, each spore will then divide through mitosis into a haploid organism called a gametophyte. Alright, and then the gametophyte makes haploid gametes by mitosis. Alright, fusion of these haploid gametes through fertilization gives you your diploid sporophyte. Alright, so looking at the alternation of generations in plants. Alright, so we have our little diploid multicellular organism, our sporophyte. Our sporophyte gives rise to individual spores, alright, through meiosis. Alright, these spores land, they grow, they divide, they develop into a multicellular haploid organism that we call the gametophyte. Your gametophyte will produce haploid gametes. They'll fuse and they'll form your diploid zygote. Alright, so here you could have something like a fern. Alright, you could have basically Antheridia that produce sperm, Archegonia that produce eggs, alright, and these fuse together to form your zygote. Now, fungi and protists. Alright, the only diploid stage is going to be your single-celled zygote. Alright, so you're not dealing with a multicellular diploid stage. Alright, your zygote produces haploid cells by meiosis. Alright, each individual haploid cell will begin to divide and produce haploid multicellular organism, and that haploid adult organism will produce gametes by mitosis. Alright, so here looking at a fungi, for instance. Alright, we have our zygote. Your zygote produces little individual haploid cells through meiosis. Alright, these little individual haploid cells begin to grow and enlarge through a process of mitosis. Alright, these give rise to individual gametes that can fuse together to form your diploid zygote. Alright, so looking at animals. Alright, you have your little diploid zygote. Diploid zygote divides, grows through mitosis, differentiates into an adult organism, which gives rise to haploid gametes through meiosis. Alright, these gametes come together through fertilization to reform your diploid zygote. Alright, so here you're looking at your zygote, your embryo that's gone through one division, and here multiple divisions.